No, you're tuned into Tampa Bay's RBLR Sports.
All right, and here's that interview we were teasing. We have Protagonist Soccer here to talk about DC Power. Welcome, Danielle and John. Hi, how y'all doing?
Doing well. How you doing?
Doing great.
Good.
All right, so as the four people who have watched any DC Soccer
at all. We mean Power, not United. Plenty of people watch the United game.
Or Spirit.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the Spirit. This is true.
Mm-hmm. Lots of DC Soccer. Lots of DC Power. I feel like following them was an emotional roller coaster that was filled with hope in the beginning. And then my entire heart for them was just dashed apart the more I watched. And then I kicked them out of that car and kept driving.
Yeah, our opinion of them from the beginning of the fall to the end of the fall had fallen so precipitously off the cliff that we were all just like we're done with this club. And then in the spring, they showed us something. They played competitively. They got some results, and they said, okay, there's something you can work with here. So they turned it around at the end, which was good to see.
Yes, yeah. I believe they still finished they finished 7th overall.
They still finished 7th. I mean, they were not going to make the playoffs.
It's not last.
No. They were not last.
Yeah, they were not going to make the playoffs.
So you have to give them that.
Yep.
Second to worst team in the league.
I think Lexington was always going to be a tough team to beat out for that basement spot.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Lexington really wanted that last spot. Yeah.
Yeah. DC is an interesting creature from start to finish. They came in with a lot of pressure, a lot of high hopes. People saying it's a interesting market to put a USL Super League team in, an interesting stadium to put a USL Super League team in, interesting sort of ownership group, things you want to run up against. They had to change their logo pretty much immediately because the joke is that it looked too much like the Hyundai logo. I don't think that's real. That can't be real, right? That's not a real thing.
I mean, if they cared about that, why did they make their name the most ungoogleable name in the history of the universe? Do you know what happens if you Google DC Power?
You get the electric company?
You get a lot of electrical stuff.
You learn a lot about the history of AC and DC Power and Nikola Tesla. You learn very little about soccer, though.
Unless you put that FC on the end. Very important.
So I feel like they were plagued from the beginning, but when you watch them play in their opening match, you were like, this Dorian Baucom has something special. Yeah. And she was fantastic, sitting up high, running on. They had Jennifer Cujo, who'd played in the NWSL, who played, I believe, for Gotham in not the year they won, maybe the year they won, or maybe not the year they won the trophy, but still played for Gotham for a few years, has a really good, professional career, has played for the Ghanaian national team. So you really had high hopes that they were going to put it together, that they were just missing that final piece. But that final piece didn't come until the last handful of games in the season. And then Jorian left and went to Fort Lauderdale, and kudos to her because she got to play in a league final, which was exciting. And she came on to be kind of that game changer and just put her pace on it and throw some hips and elbows.
Yeah, it just in the fall season, as the season went on, it just seemed like they really didn't have an idea of their identity. It was a constant changing lineup. From game to game. There was no consistency. And even towards the end, Baucom wasn't even starting. She was coming off the bench in the last 10 minutes of the match. So it's it really didn't seem like they had a plan. And it showed. It really showed. And bottom line is they just couldn't score. They could not score goals to save their life. I mean, for most of the first half, the leading scorer was Wolfbauer with 2 PKs. I mean, that's really you can't rely on your offense being your defensive player getting PKs all the time. That's not really a solid way to try to score goals. So, so Baucom gets shipped off, and she still didn't play a lot, but she did sort of role for Fort Lauderdale, and she did get into a title game, which was great for her. But DC made a couple of changes, mainly bringing on Phil Nana. I think that's really the first really important change in their season, because whatever he was doing, the players bought into what he was selling, and they started playing well collectively as a unit, and playing competitive regardless of the opponent. They got Gorley, Gianna Gorley, and she started scoring goals for them, which was great. They also came on board in the second half was Emily Colton. She played very well in the midfield. So they started adding some pieces, and they started looking better as a team.
I want to share a little context, because I think John is being very kind and diplomatic, as we would expect. One of the things, if people don't know who are listening, if you're from Tampa and you're like, we know nothing about DC Power, they're owned by DC United, the MLS club. So this is their side project, and it kind of almost feels sometimes the equivalent of their MLS Next Pro. They gave a head coaching position to a guy who didn't have head coaching position, or maybe a few games, had been an assistant coach. And there really wasn't a clear identity with the team. It was sort of just go out and let's play. And I think you could tell clearly that there were other teams that came to play, and that came to play at a high level of division soccer. I think Tampa Bay, Carolina, Dallas, and then Brooklyn in the first half of the season were the four teams that kind of soared above everybody else and set that high bar. And so they couldn't keep up, because I think they were just like, hey, let's get some players who have experience and just put them all together and see what happens, is the feeling you get from that team. And then after, I don't even think they were out of the first part of the fall before he was fired. And I kept saying, I think I even 2 weeks before, I was like, yeah, this guy's got to go. His name was Frederic Briand, just because you could feel that he was a new coach and new to coaching. And I don't think personally you should ever put someone who's never been a senior coach on any Division I team. So that happened. They got rid of their entire, I think their front office GM position. They brought in another person from the club. So this kind of feels like the nepotism job. Hey, ex-DC United players, you automatically get to work for DC Power. And we joked that the only good thing that everyone could say about him is he knows the community. So it's really a little concerning that we're just putting people on there as former U.S. men's national team players that know the community. Now the GM seems to have turned things around, brought on some players for the spring, and kind of now you have the addition of Phil Nana as well.
Yeah, I'm really glad you did bring up the coaching thing, because I think the difference between the Briand era and the Nana era really defines what DC Power is to me. It's interesting that you mentioned, bringing on a guy who's kind of a soccer nepo baby, essentially, in that he had never had a real coaching job before, but he was a DC United kind of legend. And there are some parallels to be drawn there, I think, to Tyrone Mears out of Fort Lauderdale, who had 1 year coaching the Inter Miami Academy before Fort Lauderdale hired him to be their first ever women's D1 head coach. And what Tyrone Mears did in Fort Lauderdale versus what Briand, who was kind of a joke to me from the very beginning, it just, from the first time they stepped onto the field down here in Riverfront, he did not have control of his team the same way that Denise Schulte Brown did for Tampa Bay, or that Tyrone Mears did for Fort Lauderdale. So to see him kind of fail into this position and then fail out of the position, meanwhile Tyrone Mears coaches a very young Fort Lauderdale team into a championship game, it just shows that no front office really knew exactly what they were getting into in this first year of the Super League, I think.
Yeah, I think that's. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I also wanted to mention there's something to be said about the Briant era that we had players literally switch leagues and thank their therapist for helping them through a tough time.
Yeah.
So I just going to put that out there.
Yeah. Not going to name her name because I don't think we can remember it just off the dome, but she went from Super League, from DC Power to the Canadian Northern Super League, and had the most incredible I'm leaving this team post that I've ever read out of a professional athlete. It wasn't, thank you for my time. It was
athlete thank their therapist.
Thank my therapist, friends, and family for getting me through this tough time. So I think that goes to show exactly what was happening in DC in the fall of 2024.
It's also the difference between a men's league and a women's league, where women's values are heavy on work-life balance, mental well-being. They're comfortable with therapy. They're comfortable with talking about their feelings, where this is a new dimension with a men's team. And honestly, you can see it in the backlash between the women's team giving all of their European players the summer off and the men's team having a few players who haven't had time off in like 8 years who are saying, can I get a breath? And the backlash in the exact two same scenarios is vastly different in how we accept mental health and well-being as a priority on a women's team. But when men do that, it's not okay, and they're not tough enough. And I do think that that's important to note, that we do need to have good mental health and well-being, and it's okay. And when you bring a men's team in who's not used to this dimension, it's something that they have to tackle that's new to understand, oh, women value different things in a club.
Yeah, I love that you bring that up. I most of my listeners will be familiar. I coach a girls' high school lacrosse team. So growing up, obviously playing boys lacrosse and boys soccer, and then coming into coaching with the girls, it is a different beast. And it's not because they care any less about the sport that they're playing or the effort they're putting in, but they treat it differently. It isn't, for a lot of boys, way to replace therapy, which isn't necessarily the most helpful thing. Or if girls will use in conjunction, they'll talk to me as a coach like I'm a therapist. It's a very interesting beast, and a very united and or quite realize that going into that with the personnel decisions. It only likes when we have guests.
Yeah.
So I think DC had a really good team going into it with a lot of national team players that everybody was really kind of excited to look at. Charlie Escourt out of Wales, Claire Constant for Haiti. Katie Duong, not a national team player, but somebody from Minnesota Aurora that I really enjoyed watching play. And she did end up becoming a big part of what they did. But I think what we're getting at is that the coaching didn't quite gel for them, and these big pieces didn't come together, right?
Yeah, that was certainly a big part of it, because you could see that the way they played in the spring versus the fall was it was night and day. Clearly the players bought into Phil Nana and what he was doing, and regardless of the opponent, they were competitive in pretty much in every match, and they were scoring more goals, which was good to see, and they were just a much more enjoyable team to watch as well. Like, they were playing more attractive soccer.
They realized they could win games, it felt like, in that spring part of the season. Yeah.
And it was almost like Phil Nana, one of the things that I think he did well is he managed halftime and gave them a new clear plan of attack with how to beat the other team. I remember clearly they played Dallas Trinity in one game in the fall, and it was later in the season. And I'm like, okay, great. If Dallas wins this game, we're like in the playoffs, guaranteed. We clinched a spot. And we went up 2-0 in the first half. And I'm like, sweet, we're good. We have 11 players that are on the injured reserve list. We need a break. Okay, good. We're doing well. And it was literally like night and day. I mean, it was black and white. Like, two different teams walked out, and DC came on and just dominated. And Dallas ended up squirreling away a 2-0 lead and ended up tying 2-2. So they really did a great job with that halftime game plan, strategy, and figuring out how to attack, and then just ensuring the confidence and shoring up who they are of, yes, you can play, you can do this. This is awesome. We want you to win.
Yeah, playing to win versus playing not to lose. That was certainly felt that way in the spring. They were playing more attacking soccer, like they felt like they could win matches. Yeah.
I think we also, when we're talking about them winning, we got to talk about some of the acquisitions they had. I want to bring up one acquisition they had that I think is sort of like a sleeper for most people. And they're actually, her time is up. They thanked her, but Yuka Kurosaki. If anyone's familiar with the way the Japanese team plays, it's very organized, very clear, very efficient. But like all internationals, it takes people a minute to figure out how to play in the US because we have such a pressing transitional form of soccer. And so she would come on as a sub and she was just fantastic. She was that like super sub that I think 20 minutes left in a game, you bring her on. She's cleaning things up. She's taking shots. She's taking one-touch shots. There was a game where I think she almost had a long ball over the keeper. And so she just had an incredible ability. And I think oftentimes she was overlooked. So I hope she stays in the league because she is extremely talented and is exactly what you want in the midfield. But I know DC Power has not renewed her contract.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you really need that midfield organizer. And that's something I hear from a lot of players when they come from overseas, from Europe or Asia, is that it's a quick, physical league here in America. There's a lot of contact. There's a lot of going back and forth. It's not necessarily, what's your, South American style skill on the ball type deal. It's a lot of what can you bring mentally to make something happen. It almost feels like I think there's some parallels maybe to be drawn between the way the Japanese national team or she's not on the national team, right? Kurosaki, is she?
I don't think she is.
Okay, but she's in that system, and there's some ways to be drawn there between her and I think Shin-Nae Young, one of our favorite players here on the podcast for Lexington. Somebody who comes in late, it seems like, for their two teams, a little bit underutilized, and just does the work in a very workman-like way. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting to see. It does take some minutes to get integrated. But yes, those are the types of players I think would be really well suited to this league once they're allowed to be, once a coach integrates them with them in mind, I think.
And a coach who understands how to adapt players, like you have to adapt, learn how to figure out where is their best position, where's the right position, and adapt to them. I think in addition to Katie Duong being an excellent player and almost like that constant throughout the season, like she was steady. You could kind of like predict, the sun's going to rise and she's going to be consistent throughout the season. But I think we all fell in love with Gianna Gorley, who just is a master at sort of scoring goals, taking runs in stride, taking the ball in stride, and going towards goal. She was super impressive. And she was what they needed as someone who can score goals. Yeah, I enjoyed watching her.
Yeah. You're exactly right. She's the type of player DC needed at that moment. And her absence from Fort Lauderdale, I think, as great a player as she is, her absence may have benefited that team down in South Florida in some ways, because she created the space for that attacking trident that Fort Lauderdale had to operate with Kiara Locklear. I think there would have been some overlap, some redundancy if she had stayed there, Gorley. But the fact that they shipped her away, really created the space necessary for what Tyrone Mears wanted to do forward. It may say something about the type of coach he is, being willing to get rid of a good attacking piece to a weaker team in order to bring up the overall attacking level of his club. So it's interesting to watch that. It's really interesting. I think we're all waiting with bated breath to see, does United recall Gorley? Do they let DC Power sign her on a permanent? Because if they can keep her, that's a big part for what they want to do next year.
Yeah, I agree. I think she showed herself to be very valuable, and they want to pair someone up with her up top. I don't think she can do it alone. I think the thing that I'm watching DC in the spring, as well as they played, it was clear that they're just talent-wise, they just needed more players. They needed more talented players to really make an impact. And you're kind of seeing a bit of it so far in the off season. They brought in some interesting players that I think are going to help. They kept a pretty good core of players. I don't really have an argument with the players that they kept. I think they all made a mark and deserve to be brought back for another year.
Yeah. Are there any surprises? I've got one, maybe two surprises out of the players that they let walk. Are there any surprises for you out of DC who's leaving?
I mean, I think the Kurosaki was one. Danielle mentioned. Certainly not seeing Maddie Wolfbauer coming back, and we obviously don't know the circumstances. Most of these players sign one year deals, so she may have opportunity to go elsewhere. The good news, I think, for DC Power is that they replaced her with someone who also played very well last year, and with Sydney Cummings coming from Spokane, who's basically going to fill the same role. And had done a good job for Spokane. So I think they've already taken care of that issue on the back line. Other than that, I thought most everyone they kept. Certainly Emily Colton had done well in her time there. Susanna Fitch basically played the entire season. She's not her name isn't constant. There is a constant there, but Susanna Fitch was a constant.
All league, right? Susanna Fitch.
Yeah. Yep. And Madison Mernon on the defense didn't start the year starting, but worked her way into a starting role and played very well. Morgan Aquino, I think she can be decent. I think she had moments where she was a little shaky. I think as the season went more on, I think she got better and better. So she stays on board. But as I said, as a whole, the core they kept, I thought was a good core, but they definitely need to build on it.
Yeah. I think it does show they want they're willing to go out there and make some signings. They're not doing the Lexington thing like they've done in the past week, where they've just signed almost an entirely new team, which Lexington needs to. But like you said, I like Constant staying. Fitch, Mernon ended up becoming one of my favorite players in the whole league with her work rate. Aquino, I think, better than Adelaide Gay. I don't know if I'd put her in that top tier of goalies in the league. So they may want to look at bringing in somebody to compete with her. But yeah, it is a good group. Grace Yango, of course, in the midfield was always dangerous. And Loza Barra really came into her own late. The Ethiopian national teamer. And it's interesting just how much that team changed. Like you said, night and day is a theme between one half to another, one half of the season to another. Phil Nano was there all season he was there as an assistant coach. He was kind of a local DC area youth guy that they brought in. And so to see the team really rally around him in the spring, I mean, I can't stop thinking about the way he was always there for them, and they just wanted their DC United guy instead. So, but yeah, they got a really good core, I think. If you guys agree with that, I think that's accurate. And they've brought in some good players, right? You guys know who they've brought in so far?
Yeah, as I mentioned, they brought in Sydney Cummings from Spokane to plug up the back line. They brought Jada Bedoya over from Carolina Ascent to just be up top. I think that's going to add some depth to the forward line. I'm intrigued by Alexis. I know I'm going to butcher the last name. There in the midfield. She has national team experience at like the U18, U19 level. So she's an intriguing player in the midfield. And then they brought another forward on, Margie DeTrizio. So they haven't done a ton of signs, but I think the ones they have done, I think are well thought out. and they're definitely going to add depth to this club. So I'm really curious to see who else they bring on board. I still would like to see them bring some kind of attacking midfielder behind their front line, who can create as well. I certainly like Kay Duong. I don't think she's the attacking midfielder that they could use. Someone who can run at defenses and distribute. They need someone like that. I think who could really open up possibilities for the front line.
I do think, as I look at this roster, it's a solid core that you can easily build around, but you need to add a few pieces. And I know we don't like talking about other leagues, but you have to talk about, you need to bring in like a former NWSL player. You need to bring someone with like an Erica Timrak, a Jordan Listro, an Amber Brooks, a Mackenzie George. You need to have that linchpin who can like set the standard and the tone for, no, here's what's expected. Here's how we're going to practice. Here's how you travel. Here's how you take care of yourself off the field and recover and what you need to do. And you need someone who's going to help guide that culture, or when you're down a few goals, they're going to be the one who's inspiring you, or they're going to be the one who's telling you it's not good enough, because you need that leader on the field. And I do feel like we can talk about the technical side, but they are missing that one veteran leadership piece. So I do hope they get someone. I mean, it could be a WSL player or a Liga MX Femenil player or an NWSL player, but they do need someone who is a veteran with experience.
Yeah, and we're hitting the A-League a lot. Some teams are starting to realize I think that's a really good option. I think somebody from Western United was just signed to a Super League team.
I think Brooklyn FC. She's actually the forward. She's actually from Madison, Jersey. So she's a North Jersey girl. So she's actually somewhat of a local as far as going to Brooklyn. Yeah.
But that it is really important. I think what league it may be, but especially I think an NWSL player might really help, because there is something to be said for being a leader and also being an American style soccer player leader, because you've got these big names that we've mentioned for DC that have come in from overseas, and it's hard to come in all of a sudden and be the leader on a brand new team. You've never been to this country before. Somebody like a Charlie Escort, who has played a lot of time for the Welsh national team, and just come in and say, yep, this is my team now. That's not something everybody's comfortable with. But if you're an American-based player coming in to do that, I think that's a big piece a lot of teams might be missing. You mentioned Timrak, Listro, Amber Brooks. Those are some standout players and some standout teams for a reason. That's what a lot of teams need to look at. Jacksonville's got me worried. Kind of a tangent, but I don't think they quite have that yet. But yeah, that's what DC specifically does need, I think.
Yeah, it's just to go off on the tangent with Jacksonville. It's really interesting to see that they've essentially assigned a roster of 20 players, only 2 of which played in the Super League last year, which shows the level of the amount of talent that's out there, where they're not relying upon cows from Super League to build their roster. They didn't need an expansion draft to build their roster. They went out and just got players from around the world and college players as well to fill out the roster out. I'm intrigued to see what Jacksonville's going to look like.
I think the one thing too that I love about the Super League is people say, "Oh, we're going to water down the talent pool with all these Division I teams," and there's actually more women playing soccer than men in the U.S. because of Title IX. It allows more women's teams at a collegiate higher level. And to be quite honest, the women's path has been very clear for much longer with the ECNL pipeline, and that's just continuing to grow and dominate. Where on the men's side, it's like, we've got like 5 different academies, and do we have a DA? We don't. Okay, then what's happening? And then talk about watering down your pool. You got men's players all over in multiple leagues all over the place. So there is plenty of talent going around. There is plenty of talent graduating college, playing at a high level and contributing to Division I teams when they come right out of college. But we also have to talk about, there's something intriguing, and I think the Super League is going to start making their mark that we do line up with a international window. And so all the international players are also looking to get new contracts, or maybe people who've been playing overseas in Europe and want to come home to the US. So I'm interested also to see how that works out, and if we start to get some international based players or just international players. So it'll be interesting to see how that all works out in the end.
Yeah, that's great points. That's something that a lot of people really involved, like Amanda Vandervoort, the league president, obviously. That's something they always harp on when you ask them about what makes the Super League special. Not just the way that there are so many opportunities now that there should have been before for all these players coming out of college. And if it wasn't another league doing it, there's got to be more professional teams. And there wasn't even a D2 league below NWSL or anything. So there's all these players playing high quality ball, graduating and having nothing to do. And then the fact that we do line up, like you said, with the international calendar, that they love the fact that we are, even if we're not the final destination, we're the way for a lot of international players to maybe get their foot in their door here and say, I'm playing in the United States. Because it's a big place to play. It's different in the women's and the men's, where nobody wants to play in MLS or in the USL. This is maybe not necessarily the destination for every women's international soccer player, but there's a lot of prestige to be had here in the US, and to give someone an opportunity, that's all that the Super League has to do and is doing. And it's the beauty of the league. That's why I love it.
Yeah. If you think about it, the women's national team is a international powerhouse, and yet in their home country, there are 25 professional clubs for women total in the entire country.
Yeah.
There's so much room for growth here. And as we grow more, I keep harping on this one, we need a women's Open Cup. We absolutely need a women's Open Cup.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a no-brainer at this point. And not only because we would be in it for sure. I was thinking about that too. I'm really sad we didn't qualify for, what was the other tournament? We were all like annoyed because they're like, your league hasn't been around long enough.
Yeah.
And
I was like, but that could have been us. That could have been us. I was like, oh, it's going to be Carolina anyway. No.
I also think too, going to the CONCACAF Champions League impacts the FIFA Club World Cup, I believe. So it's like missed out on like several things, because I think, I don't know how the winners go, but I think we missed out on both. I could also be wrong. I could also have eaten a lot of Talenti ice cream and really just be enjoying those little cookie pieces. And so I might just be living there and not anywhere else.
I've been there. I know. I know of what you speak.
It's a universal experience in the summer. Yeah, we missed out on a lot of opportunities. It feels like especially as a Sun fan, it's easy to feel slighted, where it's like, we won the league, let us into the continental play. Oh no, you got to be around for 2 years. So you're telling me we got to win the league a second time just to go play Pumas or whatever? Like, come on.
We're gonna do it.
Yeah.
We're gonna complain the whole time.
Exactly.
I feel like that just defined a Tampa Bay fan right there.
Exactly.
It really. We're gonna win, but we're gonna complain.
But we're gonna complain every minute about it.
And FYI, you're the only two Tampa Bay fans I know, so I'm basing everything about an entire fan base on the two of you. Okay, just FYI.
We're pretty representative, I'd say.
Okay,
yeah, I'm pretty born and raised here, so yeah, that works. I've seen the Rays when they were bad, and then good, and then bad again, and now they've just kind of stayed bad. But yeah.
We've got a good sense of entitlement in the city, where we think we deserve to be good, but we've also seen some real shit sports teams at the same time. So we're willing and able to complain no matter how good or bad we might be.
Yeah.
I'm glad you've embraced that as the citywide sport.
Yeah. Yeah. This is our first ever women's professional sports team, but trust me, the women here have been complaining about sports for 50, 60, 70
don't worry
years.
about it, yeah.
Don't worry. We're everybody's well up to date on what to do here.
Heck, I was just complaining about not having a women's team.
Yeah.
Had a whole Twitter for it.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah. Godspeed. They'll get that figured out down there where you are.
I hope that many people, especially those USL championship teams who own their stadium or have like a good stadium deal where you're not having to worry about like multiple teams. Like, I hope they figure it out, because guess what? It's not going to get cheaper. And now it's 1, 2, 3, 5 million. I don't know what it is.
It's insane. I was writing something up for something unrelated, and I looked up how much the buy-in for it was in 2020 for the NWSL was 2 million. That's like chump change now.
5 years ago, yeah.
Because now it's like what? It's like way more. It's like 100 million. Yeah, 100 million. It was like 50 million for the last one, like Bay FC or something like that.
And all of the statistics show that like women's soccer is one of the fastest growing sports.
Yeah.
We're set to like outpace everything by like 300%. There's all the statistics. Google it with Forbes. Don't quote me on anything, but there's so many studies out that show it's good business. It is not a risk. And to be honest, the risk is waiting, and because it's only going to go up in the Super League too. Like,
yeah,
it's only going to go up. So I hope these teams figure it out and start putting it together.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's a little disappointing that we only got Jacksonville coming in this year, like with all the big talk that there was before the first season. Even like we were going to have Phoenix, we were going to have Tucson, Madison, and I heard from some folks out in Arizona that the two Arizona groups, Phoenix and Tucson, both got cold feet when they found out they were both going. And it's like, no, that's what you want. You want those local rivalries, that local energy. Come on, guys.
Not to mention save a bit on travel expenses. You know, if you're
honestly,
Godspeed to Spokane for doing what they're doing right now.
Yeah, I mean, really.
Yeah. Oh.
And that's the way it should be. One, you have the rivalry, but two, like, I think Florida did it correctly. Like, you have built in what we are fondly referring to as the Doppler Derby, and we hope it catches on. But the derby between Tampa and Fort Lauderdale, because you guys needed a good rivalry name. So because every time we covered you, it was hurricane season. And games were canceled and everything was delayed. Yeah. You're now the Doppler Derby. So I hope that this catches on across. It will make Dan Vaughn's heart better with love.
We're taking it. We're taking it for sure.
Okay, yeah. Well, yep. It's adopted.
Even the games we got to play
Derby.
were rainy. Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah.
I think I had a thought there, and I think I totally just lost it, which is pretty normal. I'm blaming ice cream on a foggy brain today.
Well, you got the Doppler Derby thing in, Daniel, so our work here is done. I mean, we've already, yeah.
I can log out now.
You get on the Florida Super League podcast, you plant the seed, and you're done, you know?
Right?
We're going to be thinking about that for the next week, you know? if not much longer, actually. Could make for a really nice trophy. Very colorful.
And great shirts, too.
Great shirts, yeah.
I do want to say that it was really nice in the championship game to see both clubs with supporter groups very visible. That was one nice developments in Super League this year, was seeing the development of supporters groups, independent supporters groups coming out. Hopefully we'll see more of that this coming season. But it was great. You know, you guys are great. Forlettos were great. Dallas had great support. You know, for playing in the Cotton Bowl and only having 4,000 or 5,000 fans, they made it feel like they're building, and that's not easy to do.
Yeah, Dallas did some good things with that cavern that they played in.
Yeah,
They a lot of players have said it felt like a it felt like an intimate, good venue to be in. Fort Lauderdale does some great things with the New River Raiders, Everglades County Coalition. They're friends of ours. So I wish them the best. Even Lexington when the team was the worst soccer team in the country, playing in some weather that I would not go outside in if I had to check my mail.
They were cursed with weather. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they had a really good core group of guys up there. So I can really appreciate what they did. I do hope it catches on everywhere. Spokane's got their supporters group right at midfield, which is very interesting. Keep it up. Pretty funny to me. I like it. I just want, Brooklyn. I really want Jacksonville to get something because they're our local buddies. We've got some good memories with Jacksonville. I went up there for an Armada game for the Rowdies years ago, and they handed me a Jello shot as soon as I got off the bus. So if the Sporting fans can be anything like the Armada fans, we're going to like that.
Well, they're building a roster for it, so.
They're building a roster, for sure.
Yeah, even I have to hand it to even like Carolina, which had a decent crowd. So I'm a little bit surprised that their supporters group hasn't caught on, which is not to say anything against the work that anyone's doing there. Because I remember seeing even for that their last match of the season, somebody posted in the USL Super League channel. In the USL Discord, shout out if you haven't joined that, you should absolutely join that.
I'm the mob.
And even he was trying. He's like, "Hey, I got a drum and I got some smoke and I got a cowbell. Come out and join me." And like, I love that. That's what we want, and yeah. I hope that we see a lot more of it.
Shout out to the base camp, one of the rare named USL Super League supporters groups. We love them.
Yes.
Shout out to the guys who all took their shirts off in the Carolina semifinals and we're going to town. That's all I remember about their supporters is it's like, oh, here we go. Welcome.
That was a decent amount of Sun fans too in our championship match. So I get it.
A lot of people got shirtless there.
Yeah, I got a couple of because I have a couple of friends who they have Peacock and they're like, oh, Lizzie likes this thing. Let's go watch it. So they're like, why did so many people take their shirts off? I'm like, it's Tampa. What do you want me to say?
Welcome to the Grim Show.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we've covered a lot of DC power today.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you guys for coming on. Hopefully this isn't the last time. You guys have
no, I definitely hope not. You guys are very much fun. I like it a lot.
Yeah, we definitely
fun to talk to. Beautiful minds. Not a lot of people understand the Super League the way this.
Yeah, not a lot of people are sickos like we are. That's really what it is.
Yeah,
we need people who are disgustingly addicted to this league.
Oh, yeah, you got to see the spreadsheets. You got to see the spreadsheet I've created for roster transactions here that I've got running here. So, yeah, I'm definitely hooked into it.
Well, yeah, we couldn't keep up with what was going on because they're like, here's 10 people that aren't coming back. And I was like, normally I'm like taking a screenshot, holding on to new people. And I was like, I don't even know who left today because it's been a lot.
Or the Spokane thing where they do one thank you post per day for a player. Like, please don't do this to me.
Just make it long and drawn out.
Yeah.
That's what we love as fans.
Yeah. 90 minutes, baby. Yeah. Thanks for having us. Thanks for exposing Temp Base fans to your beautiful Super League minds.
Yes, plug your pluggables. So you guys are at Protagonist Soccer, and then you have your own ats underneath. So if you're watching on YouTube, which if you're not watching on YouTube, why aren't you watching on YouTube? We're super cute and adorable. Come look at our faces. It's at RBLR Sports.
Yep, absolutely follow us. And if you love Super League and if you love the podcast we do other podcasts on other leagues. We try to give the main goal of Protagonist is to give a voice for lower league soccer. Super League is an exception, of course, it's first division, but we do try to cover as much lower league soccer as we can. We have different shows that cover different aspects. As a matter of fact, right before this broadcast, I was taping our USL W League show with Dan Vaughn, getting ready for the playoffs there. So that season's just a sprint, blink, and it's gone. So we try to cover as much as we can. And, if you're a sicko like us, then come inside. The water's fine.
I am like 1 foot out of the water and 1 foot in the water with our little sicko crowd here. But yeah, I'm Toeswiggle and on socials, but Instagram and Blue Sky mostly. Same with Protagonist. You can find most of Protagonist stuff on Instagram and Blue Sky. And we have a Protagonist W or W Protagonist on there as well. Side note, I have a little side hustle, and I am a co-founder of the Copa Tejas Derby, which is the derby between USL Championship teams and MLS teams. And we have a shield that actually includes both Division I and Division II men's and women's soccer. And so the Dash has been part of it for a few years. We've added Trinity, but actually because of the schedule, Trinity will have finished by the time everyone else finishes. So that their stats are plateaued. So it's super exciting what me and my co-founder Steve Arders are doing, incorporating women's and men's soccer together. And we're the only people doing it in the country and probably even in the world. So check that out if you want to see what we're doing and want to hang out at Toeswiggle.
Yeah, I've never heard of this. I'm looking this up right now. This is very cool.
I didn't know you guys had the Dash and the Trinity involved. Actually, that's news.
All right.
Great stuff.
All right. Good stuff. All right. Thank you so much. We love you. And we will see you later. Bye.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.